Have you ever felt the gut-wrenching sting of watching someone walk away from you, as if you were nothing more than a fleeting moment in their life? As if the countless nights you stayed up listening to their darkest fears, the times you put your heart on the line to catch them when they were falling apart, and the love you poured into them like a never-ending river, meant absolutely nothing? It's a gut punch of a different kind when the person you gave your all to, someone you thought was the most important chapter of your story, views you as nothing more than a passing footnote in theirs. And what stings the most? They didn't hesitate. They didn't give it a second thought. They assumed you'd be there, right where they left you, hoping, waiting, heartbroken, clinging to the hope that they'd return. But the real twist? They never saw your silence coming. They expected you to fight, to reach out, to send those desperate messages, begging for answers or closure, seeking validation from someone who never even cared. They anticipated that you'd fall apart and beg for them to return. But instead, you did the unthinkable. You went silent. And that silence is now gnawing at their very soul. Because silence is more than a mere absence of words. It's a power move. It's a statement louder than any words you could ever say. I no longer need you. I'm done. I'm healing, and I'm moving on. And it's this deafening silence that's now eating away at them. At first, they'll act like they don't care. They'll pretend it doesn't matter. But make no mistake, they're watching. They're waiting for you to crack, for you to send that one message that screams you still care, for you to reach out and prove they still have some control. But with every passing day that you remain silent, it's like a dagger to their ego, twisting deeper and deeper. Deep inside, they thought you'd always be there, an option they could pick up whenever it was convenient. They thought you'd always be the person who would forgive them, no matter what they did. But now, your silence is forcing them to face the harsh reality. They lost you. And now, while you're rising, while you're rediscovering your worth and strength, they're left alone in the dark, haunted by the thought of what they let slip away. They're wondering if they ever truly mattered to you. They're wondering if they just threw away the best thing they ever had. And they're wondering, with a bitter taste in their mouth, how the person they thought they could control has become someone they can never have again. So if you're choosing your silence, if you're choosing your peace and self-worth over their empty games and apologies, drop this affirmation. My silence is my strength. My healing is my power. I am untouchable. Number 1, they thought you'd always be there. Here's the thing about human nature. People don't value what's constant. They only realize what they had once it's gone, once they feel the void left in the wake of your absence. When they walked away, they never thought it was forever. No, they thought they were taking a little break, hitting pause on your relationship while they went out to live their life, explore new things, and have their fun. In their mind, you were a permanent fixture. You were the one who would always be there, who would always forgive, always make excuses, and always answer their calls. They thought they could leave and come back at will, knowing you'd be waiting, arms wide open. They thought they could send a half-hearted "I miss you" text, and that would be enough to pull you back into their orbit. But what happens when the person they took for granted suddenly goes quiet? It shatters their world. It disrupts everything they thought they knew. They thought they were prepared for your anger, your hurt, your emotional texts full of questions, demanding answers, pleading for closure. They were ready for the drama, the tears, but they never expected silence. Your silence isn't just the absence of words. It's an ocean of power that they can't swim through. When you don't respond, when you don't chase after them, when you don't let them see how badly they've hurt you, that's when they begin to unravel. They're sitting there, staring at their phone, waiting for a message that never comes. They're checking your social media, trying to decode your every move, wondering how you're managing to be so unbothered. Here's the truth they never saw coming. They thought you'd always be an option. They thought they could always come back and pick up where they left off. But your silence is now their greatest fear. It's making them question everything they believed about you. Silence doesn't just say, "I don't care." It screams, "I've evolved. I've outgrown you. I've moved on." And as they sit there, staring at their empty inbox and their unanswered calls, regret begins to gnaw at them. They thought you'd always be there, always forgiving, always willing to give them another chance. But now they're learning the hardest lesson of all. Some things, some people, don't wait forever. And by the time they realize what they lost, it's already too late. If you're done being the one who waits, done being the one who's taken for granted, drop this affirmation in the comments. I am no longer the person they thought they could walk away from. I am stronger now. Number 2, your silence is making them feel replaceable. Do you want to know the kind of heartbreak that truly lingers? It's not the sting of rejection. It's the suffocating weight of being erased from someone's life. Rejection at least gives you something. An answer, a conclusion, a sense of finality. But silence? Silence keeps them guessing. It leaves them lost in a sea of uncertainty, desperately trying to understand where they went wrong. Your absence becomes a wound that can't heal because they never got the closure they thought they deserved. When you respond, even just with a few words, you're feeding their ego, letting them know they still have a place in your heart. Even if it's filled with pain, they still matter. Even if it's in a way that stings. But when you give them silence, you're not just disappearing from their world. You're making them face the harsh truth. They were never as important as they thought. That feeling of being disposable is a cut deeper than rejection itself. They assumed that when the silence fell, you'd be the one tortured by the void they left behind, staring at your phone, waiting for their call, chasing after answers. But now the tables have turned. Now they're the ones checking their messages, refreshing their social media feeds, hoping for a single sign that you still care, still think about them. They're the ones replaying old conversations, wishing they could turn back time and make different choices. Every notification that doesn't come is another weight pressing down on their chest. And that crushing realization, the slow burn of understanding that they've lost someone irreplaceable, has become their punishment. They thought they were the ones in control, the ones who had all the power. They thought they could walk away and you'd be left in the dust, waiting for them to return. But now they're drowning in their own regret. Because the truth is, you became the silence. You transformed your pain into power, your hurt into resilience. You turned their abandonment into a rebirth of strength, and they can't stand it. They never imagined that they would walk away thinking they were irreplaceable, only to find out they were temporary. As Marcus Aurelius once said, if someone is trying to pull you back, it means you're ahead. And that's exactly what your silence is showing them. You're not stuck in the past anymore. You're ahead. You've evolved into the version of yourself they never truly valued. They thought they could leave, and you'd always be waiting. But what they didn't realize is that they walked away from the person who was too strong, too worthy, and too valuable to be left behind. So if you're finally done being someone's second choice, done being the one who's taken for granted, drop this affirmation in the comments. I am the one they lost, not the one they walked away from. Number 3. They're realizing you were the best thing they ever had. Here's the hard truth. Most people never truly understand what they had until it's too late. They take you for granted when you're in front of them, thinking your love, your attention, and your kindness are things they'll always have access to. They believe you'll always be there, ready to answer their calls, ready to forgive their mistakes, ready to be their shoulder to lean on. But what they didn't realize is that your presence was a gift, and they never truly appreciated it until the moment you walked away. And now? Now they're beginning to see it, realizing that you were the one who made their life better, who understood them in ways no one else ever did. At first, they convinced themselves they were fine, that they'd made the right choice. They told themselves they could do better, that there were plenty of other people who would fill the void you left behind. But the truth is starting to hit harder than they ever imagined. They're meeting people who don't care the way you did, people who don't see them for who they really are, people who don't give the love they so easily took for granted. And that's when the realization starts to sting. They lost the one person who genuinely cared, the one person who had their back no matter what, the one person who would have fought for them. That's the power of silence. It doesn't scream, it doesn't beg for validation, it doesn't try to fight for your place in their life. It just vanishes, leaving them to face the void they now have to live with. And trust me, that void is suffocating. They thought they could find someone else, someone better, someone who would fit into the space you once held. But they're discovering the painful truth that no one else can replace you. They'll try to put on a front, pretend like they're over it, post happy pictures, and act like they've moved on. But deep down, they're empty. They're realizing that all the people around them now might be there, but they're not you. They don't understand them the way you did. They don't love them without condition. And the hardest pill to swallow? They can't ever get back what they threw away. The comfort they once took for granted is gone forever. And that's when it hits them. They never realized your worth until you stopped proving it to them. You stopped chasing, you stopped begging, you stopped playing their game, and now they're left with the gut-wrenching truth. You were the diamond they let slip through their fingers, and all they're left with are the stones they thought could replace you. It's not about revenge. It's not about making them feel guilty. It's about reclaiming your power, realizing your own worth, and never settling for less than you deserve. The moment you stopped chasing after them, that's when they truly saw what they lost. And trust me, that lesson is one they'll never forget. If you've ever felt like someone underestimated you, only for them to realize too late what they lost, drop this affirmation in the comments. I am the one they lost, and now they'll never forget it. Number 4. Why your absence hurts more than any words ever could. You could have poured your heart out, written a message so full of raw emotion that every ounce of hurt and frustration would have spilled onto the screen. You could have told them exactly how they tore you apart, how their actions cut deeper than any words could. You could have begged them to see you, to finally understand the pain they caused, to give you the closure you deserve. But here's the truth. None of that would have made a difference. They would have read your message, maybe felt a flicker of guilt for a moment, but then they would have put their phone down and moved on with their life, unaffected. Why? Because words can't reach someone who never truly valued you. That's why silence is your ultimate power. Silence doesn't just say, "I'm done." It proves it. It creates an emptiness they never expected, a space they assumed would always be filled by you. And that void? That's what destroys them. It makes them question everything. Did I ever really matter to them? Why aren't they fighting for me? How are they moving on without me? And that's when the panic sets in. The more they try to ignore it, the more they feel it, the sting of their own realization that you're gone, and this time, you're not coming back. Here's the twist. People expect anger, they expect tears, they expect you to break down and beg for answers. But what they never expect is your indifference. And nothing hurts more than that. Seneca once said, "Indifference is the strongest form of rejection," and he couldn't be more right. When you don't react, when you don't try to make them understand, when you don't crumble under the weight of their absence, you're sending a message so loud it can't be ignored. You are no longer important in my life. At first, they'll act like they don't care. They'll pretend like your silence doesn't faze them. But deep down, they're panicking. They're checking their phone, hoping for a message that never comes. They're stalking your social media, desperately trying to figure out how you're living so effortlessly without them. They're replaying every moment, every conversation, wondering when exactly they lost you. They thought they had control. They thought they could walk away and you'd always be there. But now they're realizing they lost that control the moment you stopped explaining yourself. This isn't bitterness. This isn't a game. This is you reclaiming your peace, your worth, your strength. And that is what's tearing them apart. Because nothing stings more than knowing you had access to someone who loved you and lost it forever. If you've ever struggled with the urge to explain yourself to someone who didn't deserve it, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I am choosing my peace over their attention. Number 5. How your silence is destroying their ego. Let me tell you something. They never saw it coming. They thought they could walk away, think they were done with you, and that you'd always be there, waiting for them to come back. They believed your love would never fade, that you'd always be the one chasing, checking in, offering them your energy. But your silence? Your silence is wrecking them in ways they could never have predicted. They thought you'd crumble without them. Instead, you're rising. They thought you'd be the one in pain, looking for closure, begging for answers. Instead, you're thriving without them. They thought they held all the power in this situation. Instead, you've shown them they never had control over you in the first place. And here's the thing. They never realized just how fragile their ego truly was. Ego is a hungry beast, constantly needing validation, attention, and the illusion of control. And when you take that away from them, when you refuse to feed into their need for dominance, it shakes them to their core. Every time they check their phone, expecting a message from you, and see nothing, it destroys them. Every time they stalk your social media, seeing you live your life without them, it eats at them. Every time they replay the memories and realize how much you loved them, how much you cared, it chips away at their pride. Here's the brutal truth. They thought they could easily replace you. But they're learning the hard way that no one can replace the person who truly sees them, who loves them unconditionally. And at first, they'll pretend your silence doesn't bother them. They'll post happy pictures. They'll act like they've moved on, maybe even try to get a rise out of you to prove that they're over it. But behind those carefully curated images, they're falling apart. Because when someone's ego is inflated, when they thrive on feeling important, on being the center of someone's world, the moment you take that away from them, they spiral. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Let them think you're cold, heartless, or like you moved on easily. Let them think whatever they want, because none of it matters. What matters is this: they're the ones suffering now. Your silence is forcing them to confront something they never wanted to face. They needed your validation more than you ever needed them. And that's the ultimate blow to their ego." As time passes, they might try to break the silence. They might send a casual text, trying to lure you back into their world. They might ask mutual friends about you, trying to find out if you still care. But here's the truth: they're not fooling you. You owe them nothing. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to give them any more of your energy. Your silence? It's the loudest message you could send. Your absence? It's the ultimate statement. And that's why they're struggling, because they're facing a truth they never saw coming. They thought they had the power, but now you're the one who's free. So if you're done feeding into their ego and you're choosing your peace, drop this affirmation in the comments. My silence is breaking their ego, not my heart. Number 6. What happens when you stay silent long enough? Here's the hard truth they'll never admit. The longer you stay silent, the more it destroys them from the inside. At first, they'll pretend your silence doesn't bother them. They'll carry on with their lives, going out, posting pictures, maybe even getting involved with someone else to convince themselves and everyone else that they're perfectly fine without you. But here's the catch: silence doesn't leave them the way they expect. It doesn't come all at once. It sneaks up on them, relentless and steady, until it starts to eat away at their peace. As the days turn into weeks, and the weeks turn into months, that silence becomes deafening. They'll start to tell themselves you're just being dramatic, or that you're playing some kind of game. But deep down, they can't shake the growing realization that you're not coming back. You're really gone. And that's when panic sets in. That's when they start checking their phone, heart racing, hoping to see your name pop up on the screen. That's when every little memory of you hits them like a tidal wave. They'll replay every word you said, every touch, every moment they took for granted. And then comes the gut-wrenching truth. They lost you. The person who once gave them everything. The one who was always there. The one who would have done anything for them. They've lost that person. And the worst part? They never thought they would. At first, their ego won't allow them to admit they're hurting. They'll distract themselves with shallow distractions, friends, work, parties, maybe even a new relationship. But nothing can fill the void your absence created. The silence is a constant reminder that you are gone, and that they are now just a stranger to you. That's when they'll start reaching out, sending texts like, "Hey, how have you been?" Acting casual, as if they're just checking in, when really they're hoping you'll break and give them back the control they once had. But here's the kicker. By the time they finally realize your silence wasn't just you being cold, but you reclaiming your power. By the time they understand that they lost the best thing that ever happened to them, it'll be too late. Your silence taught them the hardest lesson of all. You are not someone to be taken for granted. You are not someone who waits around for validation. You are someone who walks away when they aren't valued. You are someone who prioritizes peace over chaos. And the moment they realize they didn't treat you with the care and respect you deserve, they'll realize they'll never get the chance to fix it. So if you're healing in silence, reclaiming your power, and choosing yourself, drop this affirmation in the comments. I'm healing in silence, and they'll miss me when I'm gone. Number 7. How to keep your power in silence. I get it. Silence feels like a weight sometimes. It's like your heart is still holding on, remembering their touch, hearing their voice in your mind, and wondering if breaking that silence will finally give you the closure you've been craving. But let me tell you something. Closure doesn't come from them. It comes from you. Every day you choose silence, you're choosing yourself. Every moment you resist the urge to reach out, every time you bite your tongue and let the silence do its work, you are reclaiming your power. Here's the key. Your silence is a shield, not a prison. It's about healing. It's about rebuilding. And it's about reclaiming everything they tried to take from you. You don't need their validation. You don't need their apology. What you need is to be strong enough to stand tall without them. Silence gives you the space to focus on yourself, to grow, to evolve into the person they never thought you could become without them. But how do you stay strong in that silence? How do you stop yourself from falling back into the same old pattern? How do you make sure that you never give them the satisfaction of thinking they still have a hold on you? Start by setting boundaries. Block them if you need to. If their name popping up on your screen makes you weak, then block them. If seeing their posts sends you into an emotional spiral, block them. If they're using social media to play games or make you feel like you're still an option, block them. This isn't about being petty. It's about protecting your peace. You don't owe them an explanation, a response, or any part of your energy. Delete their old messages. Let them go. Stop replaying the conversations in your head, searching for something that isn't there anymore. Every time you go back to those texts, you're reopening a wound that needs to heal. Clear your mind, clear your space, and let go. And stop checking their social media. Seriously, it's toxic. Every time you scroll through their posts, you're giving them space in your life. Space they don't deserve. They might look happy. They might post about their perfect new life. But you know what? None of it matters. People show what they want you to see. Their happiness could be fake. Their new relationship might be a distraction. But the only thing you need to focus on is you. Your true power lies in becoming the person they never imagined you would be without them. Invest in yourself. Work on your dreams. Build the life they thought you couldn't have without them. You're not stuck. You're growing. You're rising. Because nothing is more powerful than them realizing that the person they walked away from is no longer someone they can get back. That's the real punishment they never expected. Your silence is the weapon they never saw coming. So, if you're choosing your peace over their chaos, if you're building the life they never thought you could have, drop this affirmation in the comments. I am growing into the person they never thought I could be. This silence isn't weakness, it's strength. Your silence is your power, and the louder you stay, the more they'll regret not appreciating you when they had the chance. Stay silent, stay strong, and never forget your worth.